So we're only a few days away from the North American release of Wonder Woman 1984. It will be out on the 25th here in North America. I don't imagine the North American box office will be very big since it's going to be simultaneously released in theaters and on HBO Max. So why would anybody go to the theaters when you can just pay for 1 month of HBO Max and then you could just quit after you watch Wonder Woman 1984? That's a lot cheaper than going to the theaters. So theaters are essentially losing out on another one. I've talked about this in a previous video. There's a reason that they wanted to get this out, at least according to Cosmic Book News, because it would be stale if it came out over the summer, because apparently the film is anti-Trump. In fact, a reviewer called it so anti-Trump that it comes off sloppy because it just goes too far with it. And what's funny is they point out that the reviewer is also anti-Trump, and that makes this kind of funny. Whether or not this is all, true, we'll find out in a few days. I'm of course going to watch the movie. I'll probably give my thoughts on it in a video or at least on a stream, and we'll talk about whether I like it or not. The reviews are still pouring in for this movie, by the way. It's at 85% with critics, which is a far cry from the high 90s that the original got. We can still talk about box office, though, because the film was released in international theaters, and it is disappointing. It flopped in China and a few other places. One place in particular, Japan, and I want to talk about their box office, but first let's go through this. So Wonder Woman 1984's international theatrical debut was not as successful as planned, opening to only $18.8 million in China and a total of $38.5 million overseas. As reported by The Hollywood Reporter, Wonder Woman 1984 didn't even place first in China during its opening weekend, losing out to The Rescue's $35 million. For comparison, 2017's Wonder Woman opened to $38 million in China before earning a total of $90.5 million. At this pace, it could be a tough road for the sequel to recoup its $200 million budget. Box office analysts anticipate Wonder Woman 1984 will make around $40 million in its run in China, which is pretty bad. So it's not doing good in China. This was one of the places where it could potentially make some of its money back, because you have to consider this film a huge loss for Warner Brothers. The gamble with this movie is that they'll bring in subscribers for HBO Max. They're pretty much eating the cost of this movie to grow HBO Max. At the end of the day, that's what they care about with this movie. The movie is not going to make the money that was put into it all. And in fact, they're taking a huge loss on all of their movies this year because all of their movies are going to HBO Max. So they kind of need these movies to do good internationally to at least maybe recap some of the money that it lost. And I just don't think that some of these movies are going to do very well. Matrix 4, I think, might do well. It'll depend on how well it's received. We'll see. But here's the thing. So a lot of these places, it's not doing well. Japan was kind of interesting. It made at least, I think, about $1.2 million. It did terrible in Japan. Yeah, here we go. $1.6 million in Mexico and Japan. In the IGN review, they say, it's a film with a heart full of hope and love, a nostalgic look back to a beloved time that provides escapism for a difficult year. So this movie could still be good. So, like I said, there's only this one review that's trashing it, saying that it's full of Trumpism, and that's coming from the reason I found that funny is because it's coming from an orange man, a big orange man hater says it's too anti-orange man, which I found funny. But one thing I wanted to show why this is really disappointing: $1.6 million in Mexico and Japan. So here's the thing: Japan's box office is actually super strong right now, at least for one movie, this Demon Slayer movie. I haven't talked about this in a video, but that movie is killing it over in Japan. That movie is making tons of money. And it's really defying expectations for movies. According to Deadline, Japan's Demon Slayer, the movie, Mugen Train, through Sunday has grossed 31.17 billion yen. For comparison, that's $300.4 million. That's a lot of money. That means people are still going to the theaters in Japan and they didn't go see Wonder Woman. And we're at a time when there's not that much stuff coming out. There's barely anything coming out to theaters. And there's such few movies coming out that theaters, if they are open, play like older stuff, which I kind of like, actually. I like them playing the older stuff because, for one, the tickets are usually cheaper. And it's fun to go see an old movie, especially when you really like. It's like, oh, I get to see it in the big screen again, which is kind of a treat. But in fact, like, Demon Slayers is about to overthrow some Studio Ghibli box office numbers, which is pretty impressive. So people are still willing to go to the theaters in international markets, but they don't want to go see Wonder Woman. Now, this doesn't really mean very much to how it would have performed here in America, but I still think it's interesting to look at and talk about because we don't have a box office really to kind of break down anymore over here in North America. But I do think it's kind of odd that the movie is flopping everywhere. I believe this movie, the original, did okay internationally. I don't quite remember the numbers. Let me check real quick. So the original, as you can see here, did pretty good with international box office. Now, this is a little bit different than back in 2017, right? Like, I want to take that into account and say, hey, there's no way it's going to make this number in today's day and age. But I think Demon Slayer does show like a film can still make money in some markets, and it was an international success in 2017. It almost made as much money as its domestic box office. You can't dismiss that. So while it won't make nearly as much money, I do think it's interesting that it's not doing well at all. Like, it's flopping internationally. It's flopping. And it was a success in 2017. So something's going on there. I don't know what. I don't know what. We'll have to wait and see what reviewers from other countries say, which I don't think we really have much information on that. I'll try and look into that and find an answer to that question. But, look at Demon Slayer. People are so willing to go to the theaters if it seems worthy to them, and it seems like Wonder Woman 1984 is not worth the trip for people in international markets. It's being called a flop by just about every outlet. It's a disappointment, and that's pretty interesting. So, considering how well the first one did, so this is an ongoing story. The only other thing we'll be able to look at when this movie comes out domestically is streaming service. Like, there's the Nielsen streaming stuff that comes out. We'll be able to see if this movie really cracked into that. That's about all we can check to see if it's successful here. So we'll find out. It's fun to talk about this stuff again. At least we haven't been able to talk about this in a long time. But finally, maybe some normalcy as far as covering entertainment content. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Why do you think this movie is flopping internationally? The first one did pretty good. So give me your thoughts on that. Do you think this movie is going to go over well domestically? What do you think about that? Also, if you would, please like, subscribe. Make sure you're still subscribed. Hit that notification bell, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace. Also, if you want to help support the channel, check out my Teespring store. There's a link in the description. You can find some merchandise in there that you might want to check out.